The desert stretched endlessly beneath a white, merciless sky, its heat pressing down like a living weight. For weeks, the Apache people had watched the land turn against them. Streams that once whispered through the rocks had vanished. The earth split open in long, jagged scars, as if the ground itself were crying out. Children sat silently beside their mothers, their lips dry and cracked. Even the warriors, men hardened by battle and survival, felt fear creeping into their bones. Water was life, and life was slipping away. Scouts were sent in every direction, riding until their horses could barely stand. One by one, they returned with the same report: nothing. No hidden springs. No clouds gathering on the horizon. Only dust and heat. Chief Nantan Lupa listened without speaking, his face carved from patience and worry. He knew that if the land gave nothing soon, his people would be forced to move or die trying. It was during this time of desperation that the stranger appeared. He came alone, riding a tired horse, his clothes coated in dust and sweat. He did not carry himself like a soldier or a thief. Still, the warriors surrounded him in moments, bows drawn, rifles raised. The man did not run. He lifted his hands slowly, his eyes steady. His name, he said, was Ethan Cole, a cowboy who had lost his way while searching for a trade route. Many outsiders had spoken lies before. Many had died for them. The tribe brought him to the center of the camp. The air was thick with suspicion. Children peeked from behind shelters. Elders whispered. Ethan felt the weight of every stare, but he did not beg. He did not shout. Instead, he listened to the wind, to the murmurs, to the quiet suffering all around him. Finally, he spoke. He told them he had crossed lands like this before. He spoke of reading the ground, of knowing where water hides when the desert tries to erase it. Then he made a promise that froze the camp into silence. He said he could find water, real water, enough for the people, the animals, and the days ahead. Some laughed bitterly. Others tightened their grip on their weapons. Chief Nantan Lupa stepped forward, his eyes sharp and searching. Many men would say anything to save their lives, but this man's voice did not shake. There was no desperation in it, only certainty. The chief raised his hand. The camp fell quiet. For the first time in many days, hope stirred in the dust. At first light, Ethan was allowed to leave the camp, although freedom was not what he had been given. 2 Apache warriors followed him closely. Their faces unreadable, their rifles never lowered. The sun rose quickly, spilling heat across the desert as if to test every step they took. Ethan walked ahead, leading them away from the last traces of the camp, deeper into land that looked completely dead. No birds flew overhead, no insects stirred, only sand, stone, and silence. Hours passed. The warriors exchanged doubtful glances. They had seen men wander into this emptiness before, guided by false hope and bad instincts. Ethan stopped often, kneeling to study the ground, brushing away dust, pressing his palm to the earth. He watched how the wind shaped the sand, how certain plants leaned, how rocks gathered unnaturally in shallow curves. To the warriors it looked like guessing. To Ethan, it was a language he had learned the hard way. By midday, the heat became unbearable. One warrior wiped sweat from his eyes, his patience thinning. If the cowboy was lying, this would end soon. Ethan felt it too. He knew the risk he had taken with his words. A mistake here would not be forgiven. Still, he pushed on, guided by a quiet confidence that came from years of surviving places, where maps meant nothing. As the sun began its slow descent, Ethan stopped near a stretch of ground that looked no different from the rest. The warriors tensed. He knelt, pressed his ear against the dirt, and stayed there for a long moment. Then he stood and asked for a shovel. The warriors hesitated, then handed him one. He dug. At first, there was only dry soil. The warriors watched closely, ready to act if this became another lie. Then suddenly the dirt grew darker. Ethan dug faster, his hands blistering. A moment later, moisture appeared, seeping through the sand. Then water burst upward, cool and clear, spilling over the hole and soaking the ground. The warriors froze, staring as if the earth itself had spoken. One dropped to his knees and laughed. The other ran, shouting toward the distant camp. By nightfall, the tribe gathered around the spring, drinking deeply, filling containers, washing dust from their faces. Tears mixed with water. Children splashed and shouted. Horses drank until they were steady again. Ethan stood quietly at the edge, exhaustion settling into his bones. He had kept his word. But as the celebration grew, Chief Nantan Lupa watched him closely. Among the Apaches, water saved a life, but it also created a debt. And debts, he knew, always demanded a reckoning. Morning came with a strange tension that hung over the camp like a gathering storm. The joy of fresh water still lingered, but it was quieter now, more thoughtful. Among the Apaches, survival was never separated from tradition, and great acts were never left unanswered. Chief Nantan Lupa had spent the night in silence, speaking only to the elders. By sunrise, his decision was made. The people were called together in the open space near the spring. Warriors stood in a wide circle, their expressions serious. Elders sat with their staffs, resting in the sand. Ethan was brought forward, unsure of what would come next. He had expected thanks, perhaps freedom, but the way the tribe gathered told him this moment carried far more weight. At the chief's signal, 22 women stepped forward and formed a line. They were not frightened girls, but strong, respected members of the tribe, hunters, healers, mothers, and leaders in their own right. Their faces were calm, their posture proud. The murmurs of the crowd grew louder, then slowly faded as everyone sensed the gravity of what was unfolding. Ethan felt his chest tighten. He knew the stories outsiders told about moments like this, and he feared what this might be turning into. He looked from the women to the chief, struggling to understand. Chief Nantan Lupa's eyes never left him. The chief spoke in a steady, powerful voice. He explained that among his people, a man who saved the tribe earned the right to be honored in a way few ever were. Wealth, protection, influence, and belonging could all be granted. The women standing before him represented trust, alliance, and acceptance, things not offered lightly, and never to someone undeserving. Silence followed the chief's words. The desert wind whispered through the camp, carrying dust between the feet of the gathered people. Every eye turned to Ethan, waiting. This was the moment many men would dream of. The reward others would demand without shame. Ethan's thoughts raced. He felt the weight of misunderstanding pressing in on him. The danger of choosing wrong, not just for himself, but for how the tribe would remember him. Slowly, he stepped forward, then stopped. His hands shook slightly, not with fear, but with emotion he had not expected. He realized then that this was not temptation, it was a test. The women remained still, dignified and unclaimed, watching him with steady eyes. The chief waited, patient, as if time itself had paused. Ethan swallowed, knowing his next words would define him forever in the memory of the Apache people. And in that silence his answer began to form.